On this episode of Fee-Based Financial Planning Mastery, I'm going to take a look at part 2 of our 2-part series on how to utilize technology to automate your business workflows. Now, in the first part, we took a look at everything you needed to know in order to get things set up so that you could make a very predictable, repeatable, and replenishable business. And we looked at the core components. There's 4 cores. The core components being marketing, sales, fulfillment, and profit. We spent a lot of time on looking at on the marketing side of things and the sales side of things. Today, we're going to take a look at fulfillment and profit and really dive into those components to help you build a better business.
Running a successful fee-based financial planning business is tough, and escaping the shackles of a commission-based financial planning practice is terrifying. When all you want to do is learn from those who know, learn from financial planners who are there on the front lines doing it each and every day. What if you could just open their kimono and take a look inside to learn what works and what doesn't? Now there's a place where the secrets to running a fee-based financial planning business are revealed to those who believe. Fee-based financial planning mastery. Ease your mind.
Hi everyone, it's Scott Plaskett here, and thanks for joining me. In this podcast, you will learn what's working and what's not in the world of fee-based financial planning. In each episode, I'm going to open my kimono and let you take an insider's look at what's working and what's not in my practice to help you take your business to the next level. I've been a fee-based certified financial planner since the early 90s, so believe me, I know the challenges you're facing. So get ready to learn not from a teacher, coach, or guru, but from a colleague who's on the front lines just like you. And I'd like to invite you to subscribe to my email internet newsletter to get the most up-to-date tips on how to build and grow your fee-based financial planning practice by going to feebasedfinancialplanningmastery.com.
And now for our feature segment.
And core number 3 is simply fulfillment. This is simply the execution of what it is you said you're going to do. Now, you hit the fulfillment stage when you actually have work to do. So the first thing you need to do is map out the process you and your team go through for a complete opportunity. In this case, the opportunity is the writing of a comprehensive financial plan. You want to do the same thing for an insurance policy. You want to do the same thing for an investment plan recommendation. You want to map out what are the processes that we're going to go through in order to complete this process, in order to fulfill on the agreement. So in this case, we're going to outline the steps to fulfill the financial planning opportunity. And these steps are, again, we've kind of mapped it out. So we know what happens every single time somebody says, I'd like to move forward with a financial planning opportunity. So what do we do? Well, the first thing we do is I'm going to pass my file on to a plan writer. And the plan writer is somebody who's really the person who's going to put the information into our system. So I pass the file on to that person. Then me as the financial planner, I'm going to review that information. So somebody else is keying all the information into the system on my behalf. And then I'm going to take that information with the file and I'm going to go through it page by page just to make sure everything was done properly. And I'll tell you, 99% of the time, you're going to find something that wasn't input just perfectly. So that's a very important step. You do not want to just hand it off to somebody else and just assume it's going to be done properly. You want to hand it off to get the most of it done, and then do a double check on it. Then the planner would, you as the planner, you're going to identify other opportunities that should be reviewed. Now, this is important because this is what's kind of building your pipeline, so to speak. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be sitting down with somebody. They're going to say, I want to move forward with the financial planning services. And you're going to say, great, bring all your information. Great, they bring it all and you go through it in detail. Well, by going through that information, now what you've done is you've got a chance to identify other opportunities that you're going to be wanting to talk to that particular client about. Other opportunities like investment opportunities, other opportunities like insurance opportunities, living benefits opportunities, this sort of thing. And so you're going to go through that. So you're going to pass on the file to your assistant or junior planner. They're going to put the information in, build the base plan. You're going to review that base plan. You're going to identify the other opportunities that should be reviewed with the client as time goes forward. So you're going to actually put those opportunities on the system so you never forget about them. And remember, each opportunity when it goes on the system has its own series of stages that it goes through. So it might be executed differently, but you want to make sure it just doesn't fall through the cracks. And it won't fall through the cracks if you have a process in place that actually documents what you need to do for what you feel is appropriate to do for a client. Then you're going to put together the base plan or the draft plan, and you're going to, put all that together so you've got it all ready to go for the client meeting. You're going to then have the client meeting where you present that first part of the plan. I don't recommend presenting the entire plan at the first meeting. I think that's a little much. So you want to complete certain sections of the plan, and that, whatever those sections are, that's for you to determine which makes most sense to you. In my case, it's usually the retirement plan, investment plan, and education plan happen in the first meeting, and then all the insurances and estate planning happens in the second meeting. So the next step is to have plan presentation part 1. Then you're going to since you, in many cases, have recognized other opportunities. So you may recognize there's a need to deal with one of those opportunities. So maybe it's an investment opportunity. You see that they've got an investment account that's not appropriate. So you feel that it should be managed better by another firm. So you simply book that appointment with the firm and you go ahead and have that meeting. But it's an amazing experience for a client because never have they, unless they're uber wealthy, never have they really sat down with the management, like the manager of the portfolio. They've sat down with usually somebody who's recommending a portfolio, but not the actual person that pulls the trigger on the portfolio. And so in our case, we actually sit down with that person. Then we book those meetings. So now you can see that we've got the plan going on. We've identified an investment opportunity. That's now going on. We also book the second plan presentation. So at that point, we're going to get back together to review any changes that were needed or required from the first plan. And then we start doing our modeling, not really our modeling, but we're going to go through how we feel the client should move forward with any recommendations. And that's just a matter of us taking a look at the plan and having a better financial conversation with that particular client and identifying certain areas that they should be looking into further, and then ask them the question, which of these do you want to look into? And so they kind of direct how things move forward. Then you go through the execution of the plan. So once the plan is completed from a architectural standpoint, you've actually got to implement it. So implementing that plan is an important component. So you're going to review the finalized plan from meeting 1. So if you're now at meeting 2, you're going to review the finalized plan that came from meeting 1. Any changes that were made to it, that's an important part of it. You're going to review the risk in the plan. So you'll be looking at things like life, living benefits, estate planning, and whatnot. And you've, again, identified that. So you're just going to ask them which is important. And so you then book another meeting in order to deal with those things. I will comment that you don't want to be doing too much at one meeting. Oftentimes people try to do as much as they can. They think that's bringing value to the relationship. It's actually detracting from the relationship. It's kind of rushing things along a bit. When you follow the approach of fee-based financial planning and you actually charge somebody for the writing of a financial plan, it actually works to their benefit, to their mental benefit, not yours, but to their mental benefit, to have more meetings with you. You see, one of the things they're trying to do is if they've paid you a fee, and I charge no less than $2,000. When somebody pays you $2,000, they're actually looking for a way to justify that. So one of the ways they can do that is by bringing the average cost per meeting down. Well, the only way to do that is to have more meetings. So I don't ever want to rush the process, because if I rush the process, sometimes they can say, well, wow, that happened very quickly. Yeah, we got a complete plan done, but it all happened very quickly. And I still have lots of time, left on the meter, so to speak. And so what they're finding is what I found is that by having more meetings with you and dealing with things one by one, you're slowing the process down, but you're also allowing them to get more engaged at each stage. And they feel good because they're getting value for their dollars invested by that they paid you in order to go through the planning process. So the more meetings they have, the actual cost that they're incurring per hour goes down. And that's a good thing for them. So then you're going to move forward with all of the opportunities that are identified. And you're just going to keep that process going until you've dealt with absolutely everything. Then you're going to finalize the client's plan, the plan that says, okay, this is everything that's been implemented. This is everything that you've decided to do. Here is now your new benchmark. And then you close the financial planning file, and then you submit all the original documents that you were using. You then give them back to the client, and they really feel like they've had a complete once-over on the whole process. So you see how this process is very predictable, very repeatable, and it kind of replenishes the whole process because, every year you go through this process again. Every year you're going to be doing a review on the plan. So it's not like you've done it once and you can forget about it. Many times, we get back together with our clients and we say, so what's new? Let's do a full review. And you know what? Maybe their objectives have changed. Maybe they've learned a little bit more during the financial planning process that allow them to say, you know what I thought I wanted, I think I want something different. And so it just encourages the conversation to keep on going. And as that conversation keeps going, what it does is it also allows you to identify better solutions that might be more appropriate for them. So when you identify those, you create the opportunity, and then you can move forward with it. Now, the fourth one, so we've dealt with the marketing side of things, we've dealt with the sales side of things, we've now dealt with fulfillment. So technically, you've done your job, but there's something more. You've got to go beyond that. And where you go beyond that is where you get into your profit. So the moral of the story here is that when you take this type of approach to your business, very methodical approach, you can now analyze each component to make sure you're profitable. Now, here's a ratio that you need to embrace in your business. And I didn't embrace this for the longest time. And it wasn't until the day I actually did embrace it and I started focusing on these and trying to get my business to actually match these ratios, that was when things took off for me. And I mean drastically took off. So the magic numbers are 40, 35, 25. So what do they mean? Well, the 40 represents 40% of your gross revenue should go to your compensation. 35% of your gross revenue should go toward your administrative and operation costs. 25% of your gross revenue should go to your pre-tax profit. Now, take a look at your business over the last 12 months. How much of your gross revenue went to your compensation? How much went to your operational costs and your admin? And then how much was left as profit? Here's what the reality is. Chances are pretty good that your numbers are closer to 80, 20, 0, which is normal for a sole proprietor at the beginning. But if you want to truly grow and sustain that growth, you need to move your business to a 40, 35, 25 model. And believe me, at first, it doesn't seem like it's possible. Oh my gosh, you think I'm only going to receive 40% of the revenue is going to be my compensation. Well, wait a minute, if I earned X amount of dollars last year in gross revenue, then that means my compensation is only going to be 40% of that. That may not be enough. Well, it may not be enough, but you need to start making decisions to move your business more in that direction. So you need to start paying more attention to what all the details are in your business. And that's where the 40, 35, 25 really comes in. Now, what are some tools and strategies you can use that'll help you with this? Well, I really believe, because I know it's made huge difference to me, that you need to focus on profit accounting. And profit accounting is something that is going to truly revolutionize your business. On the surface, once you go through what profit accounting is, it doesn't seem this revolutionary. But in practice, it is totally revolutionary. So what is profit accounting? Profit accounting is simply analyzing your business. So if you go back to your business and you take a look at your past 12 months, look at your business past 12 months on a month-by-month basis. And so what I want you to do is I want you to change the way your accounting is done. And I'll just give a shout out here absolutely to Mike Michalowicz. Mike Michalowicz is where I kind of learned this from when I did a program that he put together, and he talked about profit accounting in this program. And this is the most amazing thing. And if you haven't read his book, Profit First, go out and get it. It's, again, I'll put a link to it in the show notes, but Mike Michalowicz, you go profit accounting, I think it's profitfirst.com. Go and get his book, read it, live it. It is, from a business owner standpoint, it made a huge difference to me, absolute huge difference to me. So what is it? Well, basically what you're doing is you're saying, okay, if I bring in $10,000 of revenue, normal accounting says I bring in $10,000 of revenue, then I pay my fixed expenses, then I pay my variable expenses, then I'm left with profit, or I cover my salary, then I'm left with profit. That's how it works. Well, you know what? It doesn't work that way. Because I'll tell you one thing, your business is going to eat whatever you give it. So if you bring in $10,000 of revenue, there's not going to be any profit left at the end of the month. I guarantee that. Something is going to eat it. So what you want to do is you want to put a spreadsheet together that will give you the ability of saying, okay, if my revenue is $10,000, the next line that you're going to remove out of that revenue is going to be your profit. So you're going to bring the profit now from the bottom of the calculation up to near the top. So $10,000, now you're going to take profit out. So what's the profit? Well, the profit is going to be a percentage. And this is where when you put a spreadsheet together, you can have a field that you change your profit number. And you're going to change that number, and you're going to start with 5%, then you're going to try to move it to 8%, then you're going to move it to 10%, then you're going to move it. Your goal is to get to a 20% profit level. So what you do is you map out, here are my last 12 months, monthly revenues. And then in that spreadsheet, the second column is going to be your profit. So if it's a 5%, then you're going to say, okay, then 5% of that $10,000 is going to come out in profit. So you take $500 and put it aside. So now you've got $9,500 that you have available to you. So then the next thing you're going to take out is the most important thing, which is your compensation. You need to get paid. If you can't get paid, it's kind of like when you're on a plane and the stewardess says, the video or whatever that comes on these days, and it says, if the masks come down, put your mask on first before you put it on to anybody else, because you need to make sure you're able to help the person beside you. And if you put their mask on first, it may be too late for both of you. So make sure you put yours on first. And so you want to make sure you get yours first. So profit comes out first, then you take out your owner's salary or your owner's compensation. Now what you're left with is what you have to then operate your business. So from that, you're going to take off your fixed expenses, net out the amount. So then you should have some money left over still. And then from that, you're going to cover your variable expenses. And your fixed expenses, by the way, are things like your staff salary, your rent, that sort of thing. Variable expenses are going to be, some of the things that you can vary. And so at the end of that, you may still be left with a profit. But the reality is, when you go through it initially and you start putting in that profit, you ratchet it up from 5% to 6% to 8% to 10% to 20%. When you start doing that, you're going to get to a point where all of a sudden your months go negative. Well, that's the point at which you can't sustain more profit. And so your ultimate goal is to get to a total profit of 25%. Remember the 40, 35, 25? So you're going to follow this through initially you're back testing this whole process to determine what is the threshold that your business can sustain so that you don't black out your business, but you can start taking a profit out. And when you get to that point, then what you're going to do is, going forward, you're simply going to track your monthly revenue. I say monthly. I've heard people, Mike, I think when he initially presented it, was saying that you should be doing it a weekly basis or even a daily basis. But for our business, we just found that monthly was good enough. So when we do it, I track it on a monthly basis. And so what I do is I actually shuttle that money that goes into the profit account and I move it into a special separate account. So the dollars actually leave my operating account and go into a separate account. Now, at the end of every quarter, I take a look at the amount that's in my profit account and I cut it in half. I take 50% of it and I actually pay it out to myself. You pay it out to yourself. You now have earned that profit. It may not be big at first, but you earned it. Take it and put it towards something that's meaningful to you. Maybe you want to pay down some debt. Maybe you want to, I don't know what you want to do with it. Maybe you want to take your spouse on a trip. Maybe you want to go buy something. Whatever, it doesn't matter, but use it for yourself. It's your profit. That's what you got in business for. So by putting that together, now every month you're going to start seeing some trends start to take place. Now, if you get to the point where you're back testing your information and you realize that your profits are really, or you're not sustaining your business, you need to look at where you go negative. Did you go negative after you took your salary? Hopefully not, because you had your staff to pay. Did you go negative after you paid your staff and your fixed expenses? If that's the case, then your problem isn't in your variable expenses. Your problem is in your fixed expenses. The point at which you go negative is where the problem is. So if that's the case, then you need to dive into your fixed expenses and say, what can I get rid of? Maybe I have too much overhead that I've got to cover, and it's just not going to work. So it allows you to zero in with X-ray vision on where the problem is in your business and start working towards fixing that. So when you start doing that, I tell you, by the end of 12 months, your numbers will start to look closer and closer like a 40, 35, 25 split. So focus in on that. That profit is really what you're in business for. If you don't generate this profit, Just like that mask that you can't, if you don't put it on first, you're not going to be able to help the kid next to you, or your child next to you, or your spouse, or your parent, or whoever, somebody next to you. You can't help anybody unless you're making a profit. So you need to make that profit first. So really focus on profit accounting. Build that into your methodology. Build that into your tracking. Build that into your monthly existence, where you track that on a monthly basis so that you can start paying yourself out that profit on a quarterly basis. But remember what you're doing there. You're only paying yourself out 50% of what goes into the profit accounting account. The other 50% stays there and gets added to the next month's profit distribution that comes in. So you're constantly taking out 50%, which means you always have money left over just in case you need something. If something comes up, something that was unforeseeable, whatever it happens to be, then you can start making some decisions on that. Now, taking it to the next level, now once you've done that, now what you need to start tracking is what's called your solvency. And your solvency analysis is an amazing tool. This is something that I came up with, which basically was came up with it because I needed a way to track my business very, very quickly. I don't like spending a lot of time on going into details about what do I need to, about tracking my numbers. And frankly, because it took so long to gather the information together, and it just, building a process in place where as the business unfolds, your numbers are being populated into some dashboards that you can track. It's just very difficult to get to that point. So what I did was I said, well, what's important to me? And I asked myself a question. I said, well, if I go forward 60 days, I know what it costs me to run my business. So, okay, I know what it's going to cost me on a monthly basis, really, to run my business. Because if you take a look at the analysis that you just put together on your 12-month history, you can see that every month, your fixed expenses are pretty common. Your variable expenses are actually pretty similar. So you know what your costs are. So if you know what your costs are, including your salary, then you now are able to gain some further information. Well, that information that you're able to gain is this. If you look forward 60 days, you can say, okay, well, let's say it costs you, we'll just use simple numbers, $10,000 to run your business. Okay, if it costs you $10,000 or $50,000 or $100,000 to run your business for a month, if you go forward 60 days and, let's just use simple math and say, okay, if it costs you $50,000 to run your business, then you know that over the next 60 days, you're going to need to have $100,000 available to you coming in. Okay, so you need $100,000 coming in. Well, then you look at your bank account or you look at your cash and you say, well, how much do I have in cash? How much do I have available to me right now on today's date? And if you look at that and you say, okay, if I have $50,000 in cash and I know over the next 60 days it's going to cost me $100,000, how do I feel? Well, to me, I feel uncomfortable because I now know I've only got 1 month's worth of that I can stay in business. I know I'd have to get some more revenue coming in quickly in order to cover the next 30 days after the next month. So that, if you take that ratio, it's $50,000 divided by, so the amount of cash you have divided by your future 60 days payables. Well, that's $100,000. So if I have $50,000 over $100,000, what's my factor? Well, you just simply do the math on that. Well, then if I do a different math, so my factor in that case is now 0.5. If I do different math and I say, okay, well, if I take, let's say I have 100,000 on hand. Okay, if I have 100,000 in my account and I know I'm going to have 100,000 over the next 60 days, that means I have a factor of 1. How do I feel? Well, I'm feeling better, but I don't feel great. Okay, so at what point would you feel really good? Well, the point at which I feel good is when I've got a factor of 2. So when I have twice the amount of cash in the bank that I know I'm going to have to pay over the next 60 days, that gives me a sense of confidence. So there's my happy place. So now I know that for me, a factor of 2 is a happy place. So now I can do some amazing things with that. Every week I have as often as I can, I have our bookkeeper basically run that calculation for me. And we've actually factored that into our Salesforce instance where I've got a special page that I go to that explains exactly what that is. So I know what my factor is. And so when I have that factor, I can quickly go, okay, my factor is 2. Great, I feel confident. If I see my factor go to 1, ooh, I'm very uncomfortable. If it goes to a 0.5, I'm extremely uncomfortable. Well, you can see that happen in advance, right? Because you're looking forward 60 days and taking a look at your current cash. And so by doing that, you simply now are able to better manage your business. You can and you're doing it in a very quick basis. But also, when you start to see the factor rise too high, and when I say too high, that just simply means you're flush with cash. When that starts to happen, you now need to make decisions on what to do with that cash, because in a business, you don't want to have cash sitting idle. You either need to get it invested, you either need to redeploy it into marketing campaigns, you need to redeploy it into expansion plans, growth, bringing on staff, whatever it happens to be. But now you've got the rationale for why you're doing it, because you now know, look, and I can afford to do it. It's not something where I'm having to take this leap of faith, which was always something that concerned me, because when I started out in this business, everybody said, well, you need to hire somebody. I'm thinking, Jesus, hire somebody? I can hardly pay myself. How am I going to pay them as well? Now I got 2 mouths to feed. So it never made me comfortable to bring somebody on until I started following kind of this approach. And I didn't realize I was doing it at the time. But when I started following this approach, the solvency made a huge difference to me, because now I knew, okay, at least I've got this much aside. I can cover those costs. And as long as I keep on doing what I'm doing and really start focusing on my business, start doing the marketing and all that sort of thing, then I can start to see how the revenues will come in the more I do. And so now I truly get to a point where you can do the math and say, well, if I know I make this much off of this campaign, then why don't I put that money to that campaign so I can convert that into greater dollars? If you knew you could make $10,000 every time you spent $1,000, how many $1,000 would you spend? I mean, it's a ridiculous question. As many $1,000 as you have. So that's what I want you to get to. And that's where utilizing technology in your business and allowing it to run your business, track your business, and report on your business is going to give you such a leg up, and it's such a huge amount of confidence that as you transition through a fee-based approach, you're going to be able to do so much more for your clients, because you'll be able to spend the time that's important on what's important to adding value to your clients. Anyways, that is how you want to do it. You want to focus on those 4 different core components: marketing, sales, fulfillment, and profit. And by doing that, you are going to be unstoppable. Hey everybody, I want to talk to you about something that really has been quite amazing to me, and I'd never really thought about how powerful it is in just making me feel so refreshed with such a busy lifestyle, that I wanted to pass the information on. And I'll just give you some background. So we hosted a client appreciation event a while back, and at the event, one of the speakers was the president of Cleveland Clinic, Mike Kessel, and so he came and gave a presentation on just sort of good health habits and how important it is to make sure, if you're going to create wealth, and if you have wealth, that wealth is nothing if you don't have your health. And one of the topics he was talking about was the importance of sleep, and how sleep is just such a body's medicine for making it and maintaining good health, and how lack of sleep actually takes years and years off of your life. So how important it is to just get proper amounts of sleep and proper sleep. And so that was one thing that was really kind of stuck with me after the presentation. But what I realized was, after the presentation, I was at home that night, and it's not like we don't know how important sleep is, but life is busy and life is very challenging. And so we're usually up late, we're up early, burning the candle at both ends, because if we have kids, we've got obligations, and we've got things that we still have to do. We've got houses to run, we've got businesses to run, we've got people to meet, we've got kids to get places. So it's busy. And so definitely sleep is one of those things that I think everybody would if you put it on your top 10 lists of things you'd like, people might say, yeah, sleep is one of those things I could use more of. But what I found was that, I for those of you who've been listening to the show for a while, you know that I'm a real Mac user, and I have an iPhone, and I have recently upgraded to the iPhone 6 Plus, and just absolutely love it. I'm so happy I went to the iPhone 6 Plus over the 6. The 6, I think, is a good one for people who don't have big hands. My mitts are a little bit bigger than some, so I just find that the 6 Plus is just a nice size, and I just love the size of the screen. Anyways, On that note, in the iPhone 6 and the new iOS update, there was a health component built into it, which really intrigued me. I thought it was interesting how Apple was really using the device as another tool for just monitoring your health and helping you maintain good health. But I didn't know exactly how they were doing it. So when I got the phone, I was looking at things, and there's a little app there called iHealth, and I went into it, and it was just really kind of a very thin application. What I mean by that is that it was an application that had interesting information, like it has a pedometer, so as you just have the phone on your person as you're walking around, it tracks the number of steps you take. So that I found was kind of interesting. But everything else was something where you actually had to enter information in. And so what I realized was that it was probably just the architecture for other apps to be developed that would allow them to tie into the infrastructure that's within the iOS software. And so I just started searching around for what applications are now available for the iPhone that you can use that will take advantage of the iHealth components. And I came across one called Sleep Cycle. And Sleep Cycle was interesting because what it does is it monitors your sleep cycles throughout the night. And the way it does that is through the use of the accelerometer within the iPhone. So, that thing that allows you to, if you turn the phone one way, it flips the screen, and if you turn it another way, it flips the screen again. Well, that's what's called an accelerometer. And what that does is it just monitors. I mean, it can be a compass, it can be a level. So it just monitors the positioning of the phone. Well, what it does is Sleep Cycle will actually, when you lay the phone down, you put it into airplane mode. So there's no, I don't like to have the phone transmitting when it's so close to my head. So you turn on airplane mode so no transmissions are taking place. And you lay it down beside or just ahead of your pillow on your bed. And you do a little test to make sure that it reads your body movement. And basically what you do is you set it to go, you hit test, and then when you roll from your back to your front, it will actually monitor. And every time you move just a little bit, it actually can sense that movement. And so it senses your movement. Well, that's how it tracks your sleep cycle. And apparently we have a sleep cycle that we move in and out of our deep sleep and then shallow sleep every 90 minutes or so. And so what the application does is it monitors your sleep, and it monitors your sleep cycle. So it sees how deep you get into your deep sleep, or how many times you get into deep sleep. And so there's really interesting metrics. But what it's really doing, what I found amazing, is that you then tell it, okay, I need to be up at a certain time. So if I have to get up on my Monday morning and I want to be up by 4 o'clock or 4:30 or something like that, then I basically set my alarm. If I want to be up at 7, I tell it to wake me up by 7 o'clock. Now what's interesting is that it's not waking you up at 7 o'clock or whatever time you set, it's waking you up by that time. Well, what it does is it tracks your sleep cycle. And so within 30 minutes of the time you want to wake up, it will actually monitor when it feels you're in a very, very shallow sleep, which is a very light sleep. Which means when it senses that, it will then set the alarm, and it will turn the alarm and activate the alarm to kind of wake you up and say, okay, it's now time to get up. But what I found so interesting is that the alarm, when it goes off, because you're kind of just in that wake state, but you're not quite awake yet, kind of goes off, and you open your eyes and you feel great. So it's not pulling you out of one of those deep sleeps. I mean, everybody's experienced it when your alarm goes off and you happen to be in one of those deep sleeps. Getting up at that point is virtually impossible. You're in such a deep sleep that it's just hard to get out of bed. And when you finally do drag your butt out of bed, you just feel horrible. Because your body is still wanting to be, and it's craving to be in that deep sleep. Well, what this does is it wakes you when you're at a shallow sleep. Now, it could be before your alarm. It's within that half hour leading up to the hour you want to get up. But to me, it doesn't matter, because I'd much rather wake up in a shallow state of my sleep than in a deep sleep. And so I wake up, I open my eyes, I get up, I get out of bed, and I feel great. And anyway, so the whole experience has been a great one, because over the last little while, I just have been feeling more energized throughout the day, and I've been getting the same amount of sleep. It tracks the hours of sleep that you get, so it actually does reinforce the fact that you're probably not getting as much sleep as you could be, but the sleep that you're getting is actually getting better, and it's giving you information. And it also has a feature where you can indicate some information about how your day was prior to that night's sleep. So, if you had a very stressful day, you can say, okay, well, let's add stressful day as one of my things, so then I can see if I was in a shallow sleep and I happen to have a lot of stressful days when those shallow sleeps were happening and it wasn't a great quality sleep, well, maybe that's an indicator of that. Or if I drank alcohol before going to bed, if I ate late, those times when you come back after a whole series of late meetings and you get home and you sort of cram down whatever food happens to be waiting for you or you can find in your fridge, and then you go to bed, well, maybe that affects your sleep cycle. So you can actually customize it to your own lifestyle and then just start tracking it, and it will just track all of that information. It tracks your steps throughout the day. So you can just start to, hopefully, what I'm hoping that I'm going to find is there's going to be some patterns that just allow me to see what it is that I'm doing throughout my day that will allow me to have better night's sleep, and what I am doing throughout the day that actually make my sleep worse. I think it's something that's really kind of interesting. I had some good success with it. I think the app was, a few dollars that you can get it off the App Store and check it out. So I think it's kind of neat. But I really think the technology is phenomenal. And I know I heard after doing some research on this, talking to some guys on my hockey team, they were telling me that some of the professional hockey teams on the West Coast, their coaches are now monitoring and getting involved with sleep studies with their teams to help them with their jet lag. So when they have to, travel to a central or an eastern game and they're sort of running on a sleep deficit because of the time change, they're actually able to get their team back up and running again, or back to or optimal rest, so to speak, because of monitoring their sleep and telling them when to sleep. So, or how to nap and when to nap and how long to nap for. And so there's some really, really interesting studies that are going on. So I think as time goes on, more and more information will come from sleep studies and what allows people to make better, to have better sleeps, because how great you feel when you wake up and you feel so rested, how great your day is. So check it out. I think you'll quite like it.
You've been listening to Scott E. Plaskett, a certified financial planner and industry veteran in the world of fee-based financial planning. Want free resources to help you build a better fee-based financial planning firm? Visit ilovefinancialplanning.com right now to register for Scott's Inner Circle email list, where you'll get front-of-the-line updates on the latest resources that are driving profits to Scott's fee-based financial planning practice. All of the resources are pulled directly from the highly acclaimed Fee-Based Financial Planning Mastery Academy. Go now to ilovefinancialplanning.com. Build a better business and make more money with your fee-based financial planning practice today.